Hiya, my name is Matt, and welcome to my channel, Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost, where I talk about anything related to one of those four categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Why? Because they're things that interest me. Those four different topics encompass my hobbies, things that I make money doing, and just generally things that I spend a lot of my time on. So I hope they're of interest to you, at least one of the four, and that you can keep tuning into my channel and watch my content. All right, so let's talk about today's episode. This is my first one in the wood series. And today, what I'm going to talk about is buying antique furniture, why you should, where you can get it, what I look for when I'm out there shopping for it. And then I'm going to give you a little demonstration how you can do light restoration on those kind of pieces. And then I'll take you inside my house and I'll show you a few pieces that I've done that very thing with. Okay, why do you buy antiques or vintage or old furniture? Simply, they're the best, right? The quality's there, the craftsmanship's there. If you find a piece that's 100 plus years old and it still looks great and it's still solid, that's just a testimony to the fact that they built stuff better back in the day. And you hear that all the time. They don't make things like they used to. Well, it's really true when it comes to furniture. Now, you can still find great quality furniture out there that's new. Most of it today, you've got to hire someone to build you something. And wow, the prices are off the charts for custom furniture. There's a reason for that. You're talking quality materials being used, which cost more today than they used to 100 years ago. And you're talking about the craftsmanship that goes behind building those pieces. These are people that make a living doing this, so obviously they're gonna charge you quite a bit of money in order to bring you a really nice looking piece of furniture for your house. But you don't have to go that route. You can go out and find the antiques, vintage, old furniture that had stand the test of time. It will continue to stand the test of time for you. Okay, so where do I find my antique furniture or vintage furniture? Well, there's a number of places. There's consignment shops, there's antique dealers or antique marts, there's Facebook Marketplace or eBay, and there's estate sales and yard sales and church sales, those sort of things. So let me talk about each one of those. If you've never been into a consignment shop is where somebody brings an item they want to sell, and it's either usually falls into two categories: furniture and clothing. And they bring it into the consignment shop, and the shop owner takes on the responsibility for doing all the hard work, and that's displaying the item and getting it sold to a customer coming through the door. They usually take about a 50% cut for that. Now, when you go into a consignment shop, you'll often find a price tag which lists the date it was brought into the shop and then a price drop that's going to happen maybe 30 days later and 60 days later and 90 days later. That does not mean that you cannot negotiate on that piece, because you absolutely can, because you're dealing with the shop owner and not directly with the customer. And usually the shop owner has final control on that pricing. So consignment shops are great. We've bought a number of furniture pieces in our home from a local consignment shop in Northeast Georgia. The next place that I look are antique dealers and antique marks. And let me, marts, M-A-R-T-S, let me explain the difference there. Antique dealers typically have really, really good quality old pieces in their shops. You're not going to find tchotchke and kind of yard sale items there. It's going to be good quality furniture. There's a couple in my area that deal in 1600 and 1700 um, period pieces, right? This is stuff that was either English made and brought over or made by original colonists here, because Georgia is one of the 13 original colonies. That stuff's expensive. Now, if you've got that kind of money in your pocket, great, go for it. Not my kind of price structure I'm looking for, but you can find some great pieces, and you can negotiate those pieces as well. So I would implore you to go out and shop at antique shops and see what's out there. An antique mart is more like an organized garage sale. These are vendors that have monthly rentals on booths. And a lot of them will go out and find really good pieces and bring them in. And every once in a while, you can find a great antique or vintage piece at an antique mart. You just got to spend a lot of time and effort going through all the booths looking for those things. You could also, if you do see some really nice pieces in a vendor's booth, you could ask the antique mart owner or management to reach out to them to see if you can negotiate that price as well. Otherwise, you're going to pay what's right on the tag. You could also have them reach out to that vendor and ask if they have anything else coming in soon where you can go directly to them to look at their pieces before it hits the sales floor, and maybe you lose out on the opportunity. Okay, Facebook Marketplace has been a great thing for me for finding antiques and vintage pieces. I've done a little bit of work on eBay, but mainly I stay on Facebook Marketplace. There's a lot of negotiability with items being sold there. A lot of the stuff being sold on Facebook Marketplace are family heirlooms that somebody, it's not their style anymore and they want to get rid of it, but it fits your style. Uh, Facebook Marketplace isn't perfect, in my opinion. Sometimes you reach out to someone, you never hear back. Sometimes you go to negotiate and the conversation just ends abruptly and you never hear back from them. And then sometimes there's logistics and working out where you're going to meet them to buy the piece, that sort of thing. But I generally have had some pretty good success in Facebook Marketplace. The next place I look are estate sales, right? These are sales where someone is basically closing down their house and selling everything off. Unfortunately, a lot of times it means someone's passed away and the surviving member of the family is selling off their parents or siblings' furniture and other goods. Um, I go to a website called estatesales.net. You can put your zip code in there. You can put a radius about how far you're going to go out from your area. And usually they're 3 day sales. I'll give you a key to estate sales. Day one is full pricing. Day two, they usually drop the price by about 25% on the items that are still remaining. And day three, which usually falls on a Sunday, they're going to drop by 50%, and they're very willing to negotiate on a lot of those pieces that are still remaining. You go day one, you're probably going to pay full price, like I said, but the item's still going to be there. So I would implore you to go when if it opens at 10 o'clock, get there at 10 o'clock, queue up, because sometimes there's long lines at estate sales. And the reason for that is there's a lot of resellers that find their items there, right? That vendor booth at the antique mart I talked about, somebody's going to an estate sale, buying something, and then bringing it back to their vendor booth. Or they're fixing them up, restoring them, and selling them again on Facebook Marketplace or some other form of sales site. Um, but if you wait to day three, you're probably going to miss out on an item. So estate sales are tricky at best. Um, where else can you find stuff out there? Yard sales, garage sales, tag sales, which are really all the same thing. Depends on what part of the country you're in. Those are the places where you can find vintage and antique furniture. Now, what do you look for? Well, what I look for are pieces that need minimal repair and minimal refinishing. And often, what I mean by refinishing is cleaning, right? So let's talk about light restoration, which is really what I'm alluding to here and my philosophy behind it. So, my philosophy for buying antiques and doing some light restoration is that I'm going to embrace the history, the character, the dinge, if you will. If I find an antique piece that's 100 years old, it's got character, right? That's why I'm buying it. It's been in somebody's house. It's been a little worn. You're going to find some wear marks on the top. You're going to find legs on a table or a buffet where there's a little bit of nicks and scratches and these sort of things. And I'm going to show you my methods here on how to kind of do some light restoration and repair there. But my overall philosophy is embrace the history, embrace the character. It's an antique, it's a vintage piece. That's part of its life, if you will. The second part of my philosophy is when you're buying antique furniture, vintage furniture, generally old pieces out there, you're kind of giving it a life, right? you're giving it a continuing purpose, if you will. And I'm not saying that these are things that are alive, they're inanimate objects, but if you don't buy it, you don't, maintain it, you don't embrace it, it may end up in a landfill somewhere, and then it's lost to history. So that's the second part of my philosophy. Okay, so we have talked about why buy antiques, right? And we've talked a bit about where to find them and what to look for. But now we're going to talk about actual light restoration work. So I'm going to get out some of the materials that I commonly use. These are readily available for purchase at the big box stores, your small mom and pop hardware stores, and online on places like Amazon and other resellers. So the items that I use are the following. All right, so let me show you these products a little more up close and talk about some of them. All right, on the far left here are materials that I would use just to do a basic cleaning. I always start with a dish soap, right? The stuff you have under the sink that you use for washing your dishes. But I like to use one that's got a degreaser in it because a lot of furniture pieces over time, especially if you're exposed to a kitchen environment, are going to build up grease. So simple solution in water and just clean off the piece, dry it off, and see where that gets you. If some of the buildup, some of the dirt we're talking about here is a little more focused and concentrated on the piece, then I would use what's called TSP, which is a more powerful cleaning solution. In this case, I'm using a product that is a TSP substitute. I've also used it on furniture pieces that have been really grimy and dirty, and it's worked very well. You just have to try a test spot first, usually on the bottom of a piece, to see how well it works and to make sure that you haven't over-concentrated the cleaning solution where you could potentially cause damage to the finish. Again, what we're doing in light restoration is restoring the finish and not removing it. Now, I've also included a Brasso, or you can find numerous products like Brasso that I use on hardware that's on furniture, right? So if it's a brass hinge or it is a brass knob or otherwise, if you want to clean off all the oils that accumulate over the years from people touching and grabbing these things, then Brasso is really good for that. And then finally, mineral spirits in very small amounts to take off very stubborn stains. All right. There's a couple of materials that I use that I found to be incredibly handy, and that is 000 or 000 grade steel wool. You can buy this in any box store. The steel wool used in combination with cleaning products and or restoring products like oils and whatnot is very, very effective at removing years of grime and other pollutants that are on furniture. And then one of my favorite things in the world are simple razor blades. And when I do a demonstration on some light restoration a little bit later, you'll see how I use these. Okay, next we're going to talk about, you've already cleaned the furniture, now you want to add some luster back, right? Do a little bit of restoration to the finish, but not remove and replace the finish, just to kind of restore it. And there's a number of products that are made by Howard's. And in this case, these Restore a Finish products are absolutely incredible. They're a solution of different materials in there that will help both remove some stubborn oils and dirt and what have you that are on the furniture piece, but also restore the finish with adding oils back in. And one of their products that they have, and I'll grab this here and show it to you a little closer, is called Feed and Wax, and this stuff is absolutely incredible. So after I've maybe used a Restore product like this one here, and this one happens to be a walnut one, and it comes in a variety of different finish types or basically tones, and it has dried effectively, so when you run your fingers across the surface of the furniture, you no longer feel the oils on your fingers. I go to this feed and wax, which is, it's a miracle worker. I'm telling you, it's got beeswax and orange oil in it, and it will add a luster to your furniture and also protect it. It's incredible. And sometimes I'll, in replace of that, I'll just go to a simple paste finishing wax that I use when I do refinishing on a lot of my products. I'll use a paste finishing wax, and again, this is a Minwax product, but you can buy various others. Some other things I use for touching up deep scratches and or color matching the finish are these Varathane repair markers, right? You can see the caps here and all the different color variations they come in. And so basically find the one that matches your finish as well. And then you could either dab it on or kind of draw it on. They're just markers. And then after you've got it onto maybe exposed piece of maybe raw wood where there was a deep chip or otherwise, I run my finger across that area just to kind of blend it in with the finish. And I would use these before I use the feed and wax or the wax paste. Now, some of the other materials that I keep on hand for light restoration are a variety of clamps, and these are like 1/10 the amount of clamps that I have in the shop for doing woodworking in general. It doesn't cost a lot of money to buy decent clamps. Clamps are very simple. They're just holding two pieces of wood together. Maybe while you use some basic yellow glue to re-glue up a piece. If you're not aware, a lot of the holding strength in furniture repair is the glue itself. It's not necessarily the mechanical fastener. So those are the materials and products that I use for light restoration. So let me give you a little demonstration. All right, I've got two pieces here. One is the kind of a remnants of a tabletop that I did a recent project on where I repurposed a drop leaf table for my son's apartment. Basically built a hinge mechanism on the wall so he could fold down the table and lift it up when necessary. And then the second piece here is a rail from a Jeeper Creeper. If you're not from my generation, you may not know what that means. It's basically a platform with wheels that you lie on to roll yourself under a car when doing maintenance. And so this was a Jeeper Creeper from back in the early 1960s, and I did a full restoration on that piece. And this is one of the rails that's left over that I end up having to make a new one to replace because that wonderful warp area on the rail, and it was no longer serviceable. So I kept this so I could show you to do how I could do some light restoration. On the rest of the Jeeper Creeper structural pieces, just like this one here, I actually did a full restoration with sanding, restaining, and poly, that sort of thing. But I'm just going to show you how I can get some of this, looking close, that's deteriorating finish. Polyurethane or otherwise, it has been coming off over the years, and there's also a darkness to the wood that really shouldn't be there because of the aging. If you look at the other end here, you can really see where the finish has been coming off, but I'm going to focus on this area here. And then on this tabletop drop leaf remnant, you can see these watermarks that are here left over and a lot of deep gouges and scratches. Now remember, we're doing light restoration here, not full restoration. So I'm not going to remove this finish. I'm just going to see if I can make it look more presentable. All right, let's start with the drop leaf table piece. And I'm just going to take a soapy, basically dishwashing detergent and just give this a little bit of a scrub to see if I can remove some of these imperfections. Actually take my thumb, it looks like there's a little bit of glue spill on there or something built up. I'm just going to take my thumb, get that out of there. All right, just a little bit of cleaning here. Looks like there's some gunk and grease and what have you built up. All right. Good. Dry that off with a clean towel. Okay, we got the dirt and grime off, and you can still see you've got these rings here that are still in place and some light scratches and what have you. So I think what I'm going to try next is a little bit of a razor blade on here. Just a light scratch across the surface to see if I can pull out some of this ring material. And also any kind of remaining dirt or other items that are still on the surface. That one I can just tell is just a much deeper scratch. And you see this little buildup here. I mean, it's showing up on camera very well. That's actually the finish. I'm pulling off part of the finish by doing this. Furniture makers, and I have these myself, use these large, sharp scrapers for smoothing out surfaces, kind of like you would with sandpaper, but instead you use those scrapers. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this a little bit closer. I think you can actually see these scratches actually came out a little more, like they became more pronounced right here after removing some of the finish, the top finish, which would be a polyurethane or similar, maybe even an oil base, off the top here. So let me get my dry rag. I'm just going to wipe this down, get rid of that residue. Okay. Now we're going to go to one of the Howard products here, and I'm going to use, I've got a dark oak and a walnut. I'm going to try the walnut. A little shake of the can here to get the material mixed up. And I'm just going to use a small portion of an old sock to apply some of this oil across the surface and rub it in. You're going to notice immediately that the solvent and the oil that's in this product has both removed some of the imperfections and filled in some of those scratches. In fact, they have nearly disappeared. All right, I'm going to let that product sit on there for a couple of minutes, and we'll come back and we will wipe off any excess, so we'll see how it takes a look. But I think you can notice right away that most of those scratches disappeared. Now, this is what it looks like after sufficient drying time after using the Howard Restore Finish product. And it did a really nice job of kind of covering up or masking some of those finer scratches on the table and taking a little bit of the heat rings or condensation rings from somebody setting down glassware. But it's not perfect, and what I'm describing to you here is that it does not need to be perfect. Remember, embrace the character, enhance the history, and that's pretty much what we've done here. So now I'm going to take some of this feed-in wax and put it onto a clean old sock. Yeah, by the way, never throw out your old socks. I'm telling you, they're so handy for light restoration or even full restoration work. And now we're going to apply this wax here. Now this is probably not completely necessary to do because the oils that are contained in the other Howard product we just used will do a nice job of protecting it. But I think adding the feed-in wax just gives it a little more protection, and it smells incredible. Now it's eventually going to dry and that smell will go away, but you know, you're probably noticing in some of your furniture and some of your wood that it will absorb odors in the home, and the odor that it absorbs can be reduced, I guess you could say, by using a product like the Howard's Weed and Wax. Say that again, feed and wax. All right, that's enough of that. And then I'm just going to kind of pull off the excess just a little bit here. And what you do is you just let this dry here for an hour or two before you put anything on top of it, and you are good to go. So now compare that and what it looks like compared to what we kind of started with. And it's a remarkable difference. Again, light restoration. Okay, we're going to move on to the second project, which was this old rail from the Jeeper Creeper. So this is the second piece that I'm going to show you here. I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit here on the camera so you can see some of that scaling on the piece, which is basically the old finish kind of coming off from just basically general use, and wear and tear. All right, so this one is a bit different. We're going to go a little more aggressive. We're not even going to use a cleaning solution. We're just going to go right to the razor blade. And I'm going to you always pull with the grain. So I'm just going to start on this end. And just hold on. You can hear it, right? And you see this build up right here? That's the finish coming off. Now what I'm trying to do is go light enough that only take off the top coat finish, which would have been a polyurethane or an oil-based finish, and not get down to the actual stain layer. But because it is an older piece and it's seen its better days, I'm going to get a little aggressive here. And look at all the material that's coming up right here, right? Look at all that. Okay, we'll move that over and we'll just keep going. I'm only going between the tape lines here. Basically show you before and after. Now I can see the finish coming off here, especially that scaling. And sometimes you have to kind of change up the direction you're going against that grain in order to get more of it off. Now you can see a remarkable difference, dust that off a little bit there, between what it looks like now, where you see the grain starting to pop on that piece, versus the similar area here where the finish is, a deteriorated finish is still in place. Let's move it back over to here where you can see, I'll prop this end up here a little bit towards the camera maybe. That may give us a little better of a shot. There we go. Okay. Do a little more work with the razor blade. And once I've done enough of this with the razor blade, I'm going to move to the steel wool to go over it. And using steel wool, especially what they call Ottbuck or 4 zeros type level, is it's like sanding, but just with really a light grit, almost like what you use in automotive paint repair. It's just going to take off a little bit more of the surface contaminants or finish than you would if you tried using sandpaper, which was more of a full restoration project. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dust that off real quick. All right, I'm going to move all this out of here. Show you a little cleaner surface. Get that back on camera. All right, prop it up a little bit there. See that grain difference? After removing some of that? Major, major difference what that looks like. Okay. I'm going to get the steel wool out here, and I'm going to get on just one end of the steel wool so that I don't use the whole thing. And as I rub it across, I'm doing it very lightly, almost just letting the steel wool do the work. And I'm not getting real aggressive, just like sandpaper. If you've never sanded anything, you let the sandpaper do the work, not your elbow or your arm. All right, I can feel this with my fingers. That's smoothing out quite a bit. And that most of that top finish, right, the poly or the oil-based finish, has been removed. Okay. Now, depending on the look you're going for here, you can do a number of things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right to the restore finish. This time I'm going to use a dark oak. And with the dark oak, I'm going to use the same steel wool to apply it because I want to really get it down into the material. So let me load this up a little bit here. And let's get that. See that immediate difference between the unfinished area with the restore a finish product from Howard's, and then this here, major difference. And I'm rubbing this into the material, right? I'm getting a little more aggressive. That's why I'm using steel wool to apply it. Now, again, you could use the same steel wool on that previous tabletop piece if you want, and that's okay. I would just go very light with it. All right, we got that rubbed in. What I really like about this is it's showing that grain pattern really pop. And then I'm just going to grab a couple of paper towels. I'm going to pull off some of that finish oil just to give you a better idea what that looks like. All right, what a major difference. I mean, really look at that. And that's just from a little bit of work, and that's what I call light restoration. Again, compare and contrast that to what we started with right here. What a major difference. You see the beauty pop on this? This is oak. This thing's from the 1960s, the Jeepers Creeper, so I'm imagining it was older growth than that when it was harvested from the forest, and it is beautiful. It's got a nice pattern to it. The oils actually add a nice little finish back in, and I think we're good on that. You could add the feed and wax on top if you want, but I pretty much like what we've ended up with right here. Just wipe a little more of that off of there so it gets you a better idea. Okay? All right, try this at home. Try these products at home. I should say I'm not sponsored by any of them. They're just products I've used over the years that work for me, and I'm hoping they work for you. Okay, welcome to my home. This first piece we use as a media center. It is quarter sawn white oak. It is gorgeous. It was in pretty good shape when we got it. Needed a little bit of light glue up and then some general cleaning and oiling as I described in the earlier demonstration. This next piece has barley twist legs, again quarter sawn white oak, and it also has feet that are made of pewter as well as crystal or glass balls attached to the talons. Just another example of another piece in our living room. And here is a absolutely gorgeous piece. This we estimate back to about 1905 as the year was probably built. Again, quarter sawn white oak. Needed some light cleaning and restoration. And this is probably my favorite piece in the house. Above it is a mirror that was taken from a separate buffet. We just turned it upside down and used it as a shelf. This piece in our living room is absolutely beautiful. It's got great glass, great brass hinges and accents, in really good shape when we got it. Needed some light cleaning and oiling just to enhance the finish. And this last piece is an old table, probably from the 1920s. Again, quarter sawn white oak. This one needed a lot of repair, gluing, cleaning, etc. And there's Tilly again. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Well, that's a wrap on this video. I hope you enjoyed the discussion about antiques and why you should buy them and where you can find them, and also on light restoration. And I hope you enjoyed the demonstration as well. It's been my pleasure to spend some time with you today. Again, my name is Matt, and this is Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghosts, where I talk about anything that falls into one of those four categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says Silva Brothers on it. Tommy and his partner Charlie are the Silva Brothers, and they're most famous or most known for their decades of work on the greatest show on television ever produced, ever to air, no matter what genre you're talking about, and that is This Old House. So if you're a woodworker, a DIY person like me, you enjoy working with wood, you enjoy working on your own home, you want to be educated and entertained, check out This Old House. I think they're in season 40 plus, maybe even 45. Check them out. They normally air on PBS, but you can get them on streaming service as well. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments section below, and I'll be sure to try to answer those when time permits. Thanks for watching Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost. Next video will probably be on ghosts and paranormal, and then I'll follow that up with a Bigfoot one. Keep watching the channel because I'm going to do a bunch of different videos under each one of these categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost, or what I call my BWBG Life. I'm going to leave you with two thoughts. These are two thoughts that I'm always going to end my videos with. The first is, please support your local breweries and tap rooms, right? These are local-based businesses where people live in your town. Your breweries in this day's economy could really use your help. If you're not a brewery person, but you like good craft beer, check out your local brewery. You're going to make friends. You're going to enjoy the experience. So please support your local breweries and tap rooms. And then the second thing I'll leave you with is, hey man, the struggle is real. Whatever you're going through today, whatever's impacting your life, the challenges are put before you, it's real. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, all right? The struggle is real. Support your local breweries and tap rooms. The struggle is real, man. Enjoy. My name is Matt, and this is Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghosts. Enjoy.